Atheist Nomads, episode 353, A Raven, Crow, and a Magpie.
The podcast you're about to listen to includes cursing and talking about hoo-haws. Please be advised.
Welcome to another episode of Atheist Nomads. I am Dustin, and today's going to be another solo episode where I'm going to be ranting about the news, but I have to start off with a joke. A raven, a crow, and a magpie walk into a bar wearing Guy Fawkes masks. It's a conspiracy to murder Parliament. Yeah. I know it's a bad one. It's a bad joke. I thought of that over lunch today, and Lauren added in the Guy Fawkes masks one. If you don't get it, a group of ravens is an unkindness or conspiracy. A group of crows is called a murder, and a group of magpies is called a parliament. So, a conspiracy to murder Parliament. And this is actually pretty fitting for what we're going to be talking about today, which is a bunch of, stupidity that could kill people and conspiracies. So we're going to start off with the story that I know everybody is tired of hearing about, but we have to talk about.
Supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light. And I think you said that hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting. Right, and then I see the disinfectant, where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number on the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that.
Yeah, that's Donald Trump at a briefing last week where he suggested, based on a government report talking about sunlight and ultraviolet radiation destroying coronavirus, as well as bleach and other disinfectants destroying coronavirus. The report was talking about on surfaces like door handles, countertops, medical equipment. This was not looking at in vitro or in vivo studies on living flesh because, for one, you're not going to effectively shine light into somebody's lungs enough that could actually do anything. Like, that would be some weird scoping to get all the way down into the lungs, and if that's even possible. Or is he suggesting they do surgery to stick, a floodlight into somebody? That is absurd. And nowhere near as bad as injecting or otherwise consuming disinfectants. We talked last week about the MMS church that does Miracle Mineral Solution, which is basically just industrial grade bleach. Yeah, it kills people, or at least does serious damage. If you just drink it, it will destroy your gut, and you will shit out your intestinal lining. If you inject it, if you inject bleach, that is called embalming. Yeah, it's not that it would... Yes, it would eventually kill the virus, but that's because it would kill the host. Like, it doesn't take that much when you're getting into injections to be lethal. And the reason why the main buffering solution for injectables is saline is because if you get the salinity of something you're injecting into a human bloodstream off by just a little bit, it will tear blood cells apart. I saw a demonstration of it at back in my days working in plasma, where one of the medical directors drew a vial of blood off of somebody and put a little bit of tap water in it, mix it up, and it destroyed the blood cells. It created a imbalance, and to try to recreate homeostasis, the blood cells were giving up salt at such a rate that they ruptured. You inject bleach, and it's going to be ugly. Even if it's just doing damage at that level, it is going to cause sufficient amount of potassium to be released into the bloodstream to cause almost instant cardiac arrest. And I believe potassium injections is a way that has been used for lethal injection. Injecting bleach into your veins it won't just fuck you up, it will kill you. It will kill you dead. And the president of the fucking United States suggested on a press briefing covered by all of the news media that we should be looking into injecting bleach into sick people. This is absolutely mind-bogglingly asinine. The next day, Trump walked back his statement saying, he was just being sarcastic, that those were just, to quote what he said, I was just asking a question sarcastically to reporters just like you, just to see what would happen. No, that's not what he was doing. He was asking his employees, who are the experts on the matter, sitting in the chairs next to him, to look into this. That is a very, very different thing than sarcastically asking reporters questions. He was definitely being serious, and he wasn't addressing his questions to the reporters. But all Trump has to do for 35 or so % of the population is say something is something, and they will believe him. So say that something's real, isn't, and they will believe him that it wasn't real. Say that he was being sarcastic and just talking to reporters, 35% of the population, the Republican base, will believe him. In response to his statement, disinfectant manufacturers had to go on the record and jumped into getting onto the record, saying that their products should, quote, under no circumstances be injected into people's bodies, that they need to be used as indicated and as intended and follow the label's directions on how to use it safely, which is not on human flesh, not injected or otherwise ingested. You use it on surfaces. And yeah, a bleach dilution, 10-to-1 bleach dilution on a surface for 10 minutes will destroy just about every virus because it will destroy life. Yeah, so Enterprise jumped on it. Doctors went off the rails. Governors were coming out against him for saying that. I mean, like, just who didn't get the message that he was full of shit were, for example, just in the first day after his statements on the 24th, Maryland's emergency hotline got over 100 calls about disinfectants, people asking about using them to treat or prevent coronavirus. 100 calls. I'm sure they continue to get more after they reported this, but they got enough to just get the word out there that, yes, we're getting all these calls, and don't do it. Just don't. Don't drink poison. And it's especially crazy since Trump's promoting something, Genesis 2 Church, with their miracle mineral solution, to court over claiming that bleach can cure coronavirus. And then Trump's going out and saying it. This is just, yeah. And then in Boston, a conservative talk radio host got a call from somebody identifying himself as Zach, who said, and I quote, I've been thinking about this thing. I was a smoker for years. I smoked about 3 packs a day, and I never liked this new vape thing coming out with the nicotine in it. But I also have a bunch of friends with big cleaning companies. Maybe they could make some sort of vape that could help people, you know? They would atomize chemicals into your lungs, and you could blow it out your nose. Thinking outside of the box is what we need to do now, and no one seems to want to do it. I don't know if I'm crazy. The host, Jeff Kuhner, said, quote, no, you're not, Zach, you're not crazy. And bingo, you said the word, you said the phrase. Thank you for your call, thinking outside the box. That's literally what the president was doing yesterday. That's what a good chief executive does. Vaping bleach now. We saw what happened last year when they started mixing marijuana vapes with honeycut to thicken it after diluting the product, and the pneumonia that caused. And so now this guy's got the idea of, just vape bleach. That's, to be completely honest, that's actually as stupid as that is, and as dangerous and horrific of an idea as that is, that's still probably not as bad as injecting it. Yeah, the nasty, horrible chemicals you'd be getting from atomizing bleach and inhaling it would be horrific on your lungs. You would probably end up getting some serious chemical burns, if not scarring and permanent damage. But it would be a lot less likely to kill you than fucking injecting it into your veins. And no, it's not thinking outside the box. This is being stupid. Bleach is one of the most amazing and wonderful innovations for healthcare to clean surfaces and instruments. Ugh. Yeah. Fucking bleach. Now, if that's not bad enough, there's also a conspiracy going around, and from what I've seen, it seems to be primarily in Britain, that, although it has plenty of support in the US with the likes of Robert Kennedy Jr. and Alex Jones backing it, promoting the idea that COVID-19 is a hoax and that 5G is what is killing people. 5G, in case you aren't aware or paying attention, is the fifth generation of wireless data communication. It's going to it is what is beginning to replace 4G LTE, and it will be a huge benefit for humanity, allowing wireless data communication to have far better bandwidth and better performance, with the potential of making wired connections much less necessary for a lot of critical infrastructure, as well as just for people out and about. It also has great potential for people in rural areas to get really, really good internet connections wirelessly over widely deployed technologies. 5G it's here and it's moving along, and there are fears that there have been fears that it's causing cancer, that it's going to, I think there have been fears about it causing infertility, and now that it's what's making people sick. It's not a virus, it's just 5G. Now, there are safety concerns around 5G if you are within a few feet of an antenna. Like, it is powerful enough to actually warm up bodies of technicians working on it on the tops of the towers near the antennas, and they do have to be careful. But other than that, it's radio waves. We have radio waves. They are everywhere. We have them broadcast from giant, super powerful antennas for radio stations and TV stations. We've been using them for cell phones this whole time. And all of those frequencies are below the wavelengths of even infrared. So they don't have much energy to actually warm things up, and they don't have the energy to cause damage, let alone even be visible to the naked eye. Because radio waves are basically just super slow light, well, super low wavelength light, or you could say that light is just super high wavelength radio waves. And we get far more electromagnetic radiation on the Earth in an hour than all human broadcasts put out in a year. And that's still all in the below visible light. It's when you start getting above visible light where you start getting risks of damage to the human body with Ultraviolet light being a good example, which Trump is promoting as a possible treatment for coronavirus. You get beyond that and you start getting into microwaves, and yes, those will heat things up because they have a lot of energy. And if you get up into the realm of like gamma rays, then you're getting into actual ionizing radiation, which will cause damage to cells and destroy health. 5G is really low wavelength by comparison. And the people who think that we need to be concerned about it because of the radio waves are 100 years too late to the game. But this is this article I'm looking at is from The Guardian. And what they've found is in some surveys in Britain, COVID-19 has actually seems to be weakening the anti-vax movement. Mid-March, they had 7% of people saying that they would refuse COVID-19 vaccinations when it's available. And by early April, that number dropped down to 5%, which would actually be where, with most vaccines, you're going to be getting herd immunity, which is really encouraging to see. In New York City, 29% have said that they would refuse. A survey in France found 18% would refuse vaccination. In Britain, with this 5G conspiracy that it's being used to spread COVID-19, or that it is the cause of COVID-19, it has resulted in vandalism and arson against not just 5G, but also 4G mobile phone masts, where they're actually trying to burn them down. They've had more than 50 reports of this, including one adjacent to a hospital. And this has even resulted in some actual violent attacks on telecom workers who have been servicing cell phone towers. One of the conspiracies is that 5G is going to, depending on the conspiracies, it's either going to kill everybody, kill some people, or create the setup for the New World Order to take over everything. And the virus is being intentionally spread by 5G so that they can set up more antennas, use the lockdowns to be able to cover up setting up more antennas so they can spread more so that the New World Order can take over, or something related to the New World Order idea. Bill Gates has been, he's the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has shifted their entire focus to COVID-19, and he's putting a lot of money in. Bill Gates is putting a lot of money into finding a vaccine for it and developing one. And this is resulting in conspiracy theories that Bill Gates is intentionally spreading, that Bill Gates funded the creation of COVID-19 so that he could develop a vaccine to force on people to control them so that he can take over the world. This is all bonkers. And it's not just fringe crazy people. It's like they're getting actual celebrities. And like we're not just talking, and it's not just fringe psychopaths like Alex Jones, who's also happy to sell you his treatments and supplements for treating or protecting you against COVID-19 with his various colloidal silver products. But yeah, they've got Robert F. Kennedy Jr. promoting these ideas. He's one of the loudest anti-vax voices. Woody Harrelson, an actor, is spreading the 5G conspiracy theories, and others as well. And this is dangerous, the amount of misinformation that is going around. We've mostly talked about the religion side of the misinformation, but there's a lot of not religious misinformation that is going around. That it's all a conspiracy, and there are actual conspiracies going on with COVID-19. China definitely has intentionally and deliberately underreported their numbers. The US and Italy have definitely incompetently failed to sufficiently report their numbers. The lack of supplies, and like when it comes to the supplies, we're not even just talking about the availability of test kits. Like that, the volume of testing available, it keeps going up higher and higher and higher. And that is allowing the opening up of more testing to more people. But one of the big limiting factors has been swabs, the nasopharyngeal swabs, to actually get far enough back in your throat to get a specimen, and the viral transport media to ship it to a lab to run the test. Because if you don't have enough local capacity, or if the person needing the testing isn't high enough priority to get limited supplies of local testing, then it has to get shipped out, and it needs to be in some kind of viral transport media, which there isn't enough of right now.
Hey, is it Dustin jumping in from post-production? Yeah, I got that backwards. Most of the send-out labs, most of the commercial laboratories that testing is getting sent out to, except swabs that are being transported in sterile saline, and that has been the case since pretty early after commercial testing was released, and that was because of the insufficient quantity of viral transport media. You need the viral transport media for most of the tests that are being run locally. So I actually said that all backwards yesterday when I was recording. But yeah, so it's viral transport media is limiting the ability to do local testing. It's not a limitation for most of the commercial testing. We need a lot more local testing and the ability to do more local testing so that we can get faster turnaround. That is very important to try to turn this whole thing around. Back to the show.
There are a lot of reasons why this is being so horribly mismanaged, and the sheer and utter lack of resources is a huge factor. Like, the US healthcare system barely has the capacity to keep up with a above average influenza season, let alone a really bad one. It was just a couple of years ago that a lot of hospitals in California were having to open up tents to screen and treat people for influenza. And when you don't even have the capacity for stuff that you know is going to happen every year, or at least the capacity to handle what you can reasonably expect to have happen in a year, we definitely don't have the capacity to keep up with a global pandemic. And, you know, I know I've definitely seen since the 2008 recession, inventories across the board being cut. It doesn't matter what the supplies are. Everybody has been cutting down on inventory. Inventory is expensive. It's expensive because businesses all operate on credit. And even if that credit is just, you place the order, they bill you for it 30 days later, and you have 30 days from the date they bill you to actually pay for it. So you've got that 60-day window to actually pay for the inventory you have. Well, if you've got that 60-day window, if you have less than 60 days worth of inventory, you're not actually having to pay for the stuff that you have sitting there until you get the money for actually selling it or using it for whatever the use is. And the same thing applies in healthcare, where there has been a lot of effort into cutting down on local inventory levels, consolidating it into warehouses and various vendors and suppliers to cut down on cost, because inventory is expensive. And when you're running on such thin margins, and if you only have a certain limited amount of capacity over normal, yeah, we're stretched thin. It's not a conspiracy behind why we're stretched thin. It's just that as a society, we have set things up to incentivize not being prepared for the worst. And we have a government who, despite the last two administrations putting efforts into trying to prepare for a global pandemic, we now have an administration who has been gutting all of those resources and destroying all capacity that we have to keep up with this. That's the reality of the situation. Yeah, there are bad actors involved. Donald Trump is a fucking bad actor who has been actively making this worse. But you need to look at the actual bad actors and not blame it on Bill Gates, who's actually trying to help the best he can. And definitely not on stuff like 5G, which is helping people who are working remotely do their jobs and try to keep at least part of the economy functioning safely. The lack of scientific knowledge and understanding is disturbing, and the amount of non-scientists going out and contradicting what the scientist is saying is even worse. For a couple follow-ups, Tony Spell is the Louisiana pastor we talked about a few weeks ago who was arrested for violating stay-at-home orders and continuing to hold church services at his church, the Life Tabernacle Church. He was arrested and put on house arrest and violated the house arrest by going to his church to preach to a full congregation while wearing his ankle monitor. He needs to be in jail. I don't think anybody thinks that any of these cases are actually going to be going to trial, but we need to get people taking this seriously. And when you have pastors who, as much as we as atheists would like to say they aren't, no, pastors are important leaders in the community, respected and followed by large groups of people. When you have people, especially mega church pastors with thousands of members of their congregations, seeing the pastor, who is the center of their entire social and religious life, tell them it's not a big deal and to ignore what the government is saying, that is incredibly dangerous right now. And churches and pastors have been getting a lot more of a soft touch on this than they should, because they are influential members of the community. And if they aren't going to be taking it seriously, a lot of other people won't either. But then again, that's kind of hard to push too hard when the president of the United States isn't even taking it seriously. And with the mom and children protest in the park in Meridian last week, Sara Brady is the name of the mom. She was actually arrested. She has claimed that it was not a political statement, that she was just frustrated and tired of being stuck at home and wanted to get her kids to a park. This is despite the fact that... Oh, she also claimed that it wasn't a planned event, even though the protest was a planned event that was coordinated by multiple organizations, including the one that she's affiliated with herself, Health Freedom Idaho, which is Idaho's most influential anti-vaccine group. This was planned. It was a political statement. The anti-vax movement and far-right anti-government types have found very common ground here in not wanting the government to tell them how to keep safe from disease. And so, yeah, she made that claim. And then Ammon Bundy was coordinating a couple of protests, one for outside of Governor Brad Little's house, and one for the house of the head of the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare. And he redirected those protests to the cop that arrested Sara Brady. Yeah, to the police officer who arrested somebody who was begging to be arrested for violating public orders closing a playground. The exact charge that she was arrested on was trespassing, because the city had closed the playground, and when she was directed by a police officer to leave the playground, she refused. They could have slapped her with a lot more charges than that, but they stuck with the very simple trespassing. Yeah, don't do a political protest and then later say that it wasn't. That really doesn't boost your point. In fact, all it really does is try to gut the political statement you were trying to make. Yeah. Anyway, that wraps up news. The news that I wanted to rant about. So I'm recording this on Sunday the 26th. Monday is Gary Mitchell's birthday, who's been a guest on the show quite a few times, and I'll probably, it'll be the 27th will be the day that I'm getting this out to patrons. It'll probably be going out to everybody else the 28th, which is my birthday, and then the 29th is Lauren's birthday. So I'll probably be scheduling this to go out early, and I'll get it out to patrons sooner than everybody else. That is one thing I am going to be doing with trying to be a little bit more flexible in the schedule is trying to make it more often that patrons get at least the content early, because it's going to be less likely that patrons will be getting exclusive content. Some interviews may be more likely to go that direction of actually generating some exclusive content, but for now it's going to be mostly I'll be just trying to get stuff to patrons earlier. But the setup is coming along. This is the second time we're recording. Well, I'm recording now by myself, in the living room, on the couch using the new Zoom L8 that I got, and it's working pretty well. I got a shipment in with some cables that I've been needing, for this project. So I've now got my old desktop that had been the main podcasting rig the entire time we've done the podcast. And it's now behind the end table next to me with a 50-foot HDMI cable running over to the TV. And I've got an Ethernet cable coming back around since I moved all the networking stuff over to the side of the living room with the TV. And I'm now just waiting on a Media Center keyboard. And I got the HDMI extender, active HDMI extender, so I can actually put the webcam out far enough to do live streams from the couches more comfortably, and then we'll be able to watch it all on the TV, and it actually looks really nice up there. I don't have the right keyboard for it right now, and fortunately, the desktop I'm using on that computer, GNOME Shell, is actually pretty easy to navigate just by keyboard for the most part. So I've been able to play around it that way. Once I get the Media Center keyboard, they'll work pretty well. If we do end up doing a live stream before that comes in, then I'll be probably running Barrier off the laptop. But I'd like to avoid doing that. So far that's working well. I joined a Discord for the Humanists of Idaho group. They're suspending all meetings for face-to-face meetings for the indefinite future, and are moving everything to a Discord server. And so I joined in on that, and that was my first real test of how I'm going to be doing interviews and the like off the mixer. And it worked out really well. And one thing we will be doing, and hopefully I will have a link in the show notes. I will have a link in the show notes for this. I am opening up the Atheist Nomads Discord server for the general listener population. Right now it's just patrons, but we're going to open that up for everybody else. And there will be patron-only rooms, but there'll also be general rooms. And I will make a point of more often turning that on when I'm recording, and just having more times set up where I'm available, even if I'm just sitting on my phone with it open and headphones in. It'll be cool. It'd be cool to chat with you guys. And so, there'll be a link in the show notes. Check that out to join the Discord server if you're on there. And I'll periodically post in there when we'll be doing some kind of a virtual meetup, but definitely sometime this coming weekend I will be on there at some point. So keep an eye out for that, and definitely do join. There are a fair number of patrons that are already signed up, and I'll definitely hope to be talking to all of you soon that way. I am tired, and it is quite warm in here right now. So yeah, that's it for this week. Until next time, remember, not all those who wander are lost.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Atheist Nomads. You can find show notes and contact information at atheistnomads.com. Follow us on Twitter at Atheist Nomads, and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Atheist Nomads. Please subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, or your podcatcher of choice, and while you're there, feel free to leave us a review. Theme music is courtesy of Sturdy Fred. Until next time, this has been the Atheist Nomads.